CFT? CFT? Should I know what that means?
The majority of the issues stem from our previous managing director, Mr. Rasputin.
We've got an African pet. They've done risk reviews. There's just a couple of questions around his source of wealth.
Mamma mia.
Yeah. Have you seen these photos? He's had some work done.
That you received the fees from a taxi driver in cash.
Yeah, that's right.
It's Mr. T. So the A-team have gone rogue in West Africa.
Well, on new business, yes, but as this is existing business...
I'll take it from here.
Look, Tonya, it's really quite simple. He's just a man trying to get on and start a new life. What's wrong with that?
Which client? Is that Mufasa? I've been doing this job for 20 years. I know what I'm doing.
What more do they want? Tonya, do you have your business card?
Yes, I do.
Thanks very much. Does it have your personal number on it?
Thank you for joining us today for the Financial Crime Division follow-up visit to Salarie Financial Services.
Your commentators today are Kat and myself, Paul. In terms of the lineups for the Commission, we have Tonya, Wade and Douglas.
And for Salarie Financial Services, we have Nick, Andy, Kath and Darren. Let's go to the action.
Okay, well, thank you for meeting with us today.
You're welcome. I think you'll find we're a much different firm to the one you visited last year.
Tonya, it's so good to see you again. Have you changed your phone number since we last met? I've left you a few messages. Perhaps we could go for a drink at the new wine bar on Friday evening.
Well, I'll think about that.
Okay, well, let's just keep things on track here. The purpose of today's visit is that we're here to assess and to see how you're progressing with the RMPs that we put in place as a result of our last visit. So I'd be grateful if you could give us an update, please.
Sure. Well, I guess you could say we're in a period of transition. The previous MLRO wasn't up to the job, so we got rid of him and we got another compliance professional to assist us with the RMPs.
Yes, well, two actually. The first one turned out to be no better than that pencil-snapping MLRO we had in last time you came.
Thanks for the vote of confidence there, Andy. Hi, I'm Darren from Compliance, Risk and Prudential Services, and I've been MLRO here for just on 3 months. I'm here to give things a good shake-up. And clearly there's been issues in the past, but I'm here to make sure those issues stay in the past. I can assure you that Salarie Financial Services are fully committed to meeting the ongoing RMPs set by the Commission.
And as part of those changes, we brought in Kath as our non-executive director. She has over 20 years of experience in trust and company service roles and has held numerous directorships. And we think she'll be a real strong addition to the board.
I worked really hard at the start of my career, which has essentially allowed me to retire early. But to be honest, I'm ready for a new challenge, and I feel with my extensive experience I can be invaluable in helping the firm move forward and help restore the Commission's confidence in them.
Certainly.
Invaluable? You certainly know how to charge for your services.
Andy, if you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. I feel I've already made a really positive contribution to the board. In fact, it was my idea to review the compliance function, which led to the removal of the previous MLRO and the compliance officer. I wasn't comfortable with the BRA either, and especially because of the recent Commission criticism that it's faced. And I fully intend to support the management team in moving the firm forward in a positive direction and inspiring some confidence in them.
Well, that's an interesting board dynamic. The on-site team will be pleased to see that there's been some structural changes to the board's composition.
Yeah, definitely. I'm pleased they have Annette on board. She seems to have some positive experience and is definitely affecting some positive change.
Well, let's see if we can allay some more of those concerns from last year's visit. Let's continue.
Okay, shall we start where we always start, from the business risk assessment?
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, so last time we spoke to you about your top 3 money laundering and terrorist financing risks. Your answers were a bit generic. So now you provided us with a new business risk assessment, and we can see some improvements in that area, but I don't think it's gone far enough. So for example, your new business risk assessment states that your top 3 money laundering and terrorist financing risks are fraud, money laundering and regulatory risk. So what do you mean by regulatory risk?
Well, the risk of getting sanctioned, of course, by the Commission.
I'd say that's really pertinent and certainly a risk that has materialised to our business. After all, it's much more important than other padding in the bra.
Sorry, Andy, but the fact that you were sanctioned by the Commission was due to your lax corporate governance standards and poor compliance culture. That is what allowed the breaches of the regulations to occur. That is not a money laundering or terrorist financing risk.
Exactly, which is why we're revising the document. I have a draft ready at the moment awaiting approval by the board. Unfortunately, we still have a way to go.
As we all know, the business risk assessment is, or at least should be, the cornerstone of a firm's defences against money laundering and terrorist financing. All policies, procedures and controls should flow from the business risk assessment. Knowing what we do with these guys from last year, I think their top 3 risks should be bribery and corruption.
Ah, yes, especially those African pets.
Yeah, tax evasion.
Yep, did they ask the question, why Guernsey?
And fraud, including cybercrime.
Yeah, I'm not sure that they would understand or would know what a fraudulent email looks like.
No. And as these guys should know from the recent AML handbook consultation, there will be much greater focus on the risks associated with money laundering and terrorist financing. As a tip for anybody listening, this will be something that the Commission will be focusing on in forthcoming on-site visits.
Good point, Paul. Let's keep going now.
Okay, well, can I just ask, what level of input has the board have in respect of reviewing and updating the business risk assessment since our last visit?
Well, of course, the board are responsible for reviewing the BRA.
Yeah, and can I just say, since we've got Darren involved, we don't just sit on top and tweak the BRA, we actually enforce that mechanism.
Okay, so what tweaking has happened to date, and does it include the risk of, well, pertinent risk, I'd say, of bribery and corruption?
Well, yeah, of course, we're doing all of that. And in relation to bribery and corruption, we don't encourage it.
I can assure you the document's been customised accordingly. It covers bribery and corruption from our client's perspective, as well as from our staff being unduly influenced. I'm going to be beefing up our policies and procedures, and it'll include introducing a gifts register.
Okay, and does that include the directors also?
Definitely.
Let's just take a closer look at that watch, shall we?
Yeah, now that is nice. Do you think it has automatic winding? Is that a sapphire face?
Ah, settle there, Paul. However, it does look like they're on to a winner here with that compliance officer that they have, and well on their way to a business risk assessment that is going to be of some actual use for them.
Yeah, and as I said before, the business risk assessment should drive the policies, procedures and controls, which should in turn determine the makeup of the compliance monitoring programme. It's what I like to call the circle of compliance.
Very good, Paul. I'm sure the on-site team will be looking into this further. Let's continue.
Well, let's move on to the CMP. So am I right in assuming that this will be revised once the new BRA is approved by the board?
I suppose we'll have to look at that too.
We definitely will be looking at that. I've already started. I wasn't impressed with the CMP that was previously in place.
Okay, can you explain why?
Well, simply the CMP didn't link back to the risks identified in the BRA.
Nick, what input did the board have in the drafting of this?
Well, look, you pay these compliance experts quite a lot of money.
A lot of money.
Yeah, so you have to place some reliance on them. You know, they know what they're doing. We reviewed the programme. We universally approved it. All the reports kept on coming up green. We thought it was fine.
And the Commission was pushing us to change. So we wanted to charge ahead and show you guys that we were listening and reacting appropriately.
Right, well, it's encouraging that you're prepared to make changes, but there's no point charging ahead if, with a new CMP if it's ineffective. Ultimately it's the board's responsibility for this. It is the crux of Regulation 15, yeah?
Can I just point out that this is why when I started here I initiated a review of the compliance function. I was concerned that the CMP wasn't picking up any issues, and this led ultimately to employing Darren to take ownership of the area.
Okay, so Darren, what's the plan going forwards then?
Well, I assure you, we haven't been idle. I've started a review of the existing policies and procedures against the draft BRA. Once the BRA has been approved by the board, I'll be putting the CMP to the board for approval. I can provide you with a copy of that now if you like.
Yeah, that would be great. Just on your policies, procedures and controls, the last time we were in and we looked at the file reviews, it illuminated a number of questionable client activities. Can you just give me a quick rundown of any changes you've made to client activity monitoring, please?
Sure. Well, I think in the past there was a reliance on clients to do the right thing and inform the firm of any relevant changes. There's a big problem with late risk reviews and potential suspicious activity being missed. I've put a number of recommendations forward to the board, including implementing some specific training.
On that point, it's also worth noting that some of the relationship managers had been exercising, shall we say, some complacency regarding clients in the past. So I've prioritised speaking with a number of them personally to ensure that doesn't happen anymore, and we've also improved our procedures moving forward.
Oh, okay. So how are you going to make sure that people follow these new processes?
Well, the best way possible, of course, by hitting them in their wallet. Adherence to the new procedures, including getting their risk reviews done on time, will form part of their annual appraisal. and that's going to directly affect their discretionary bonus.
They've also been made aware that I have a seat on the remuneration committee and I will be following it up periodically.
Okay, well, it seems like you have things in hand.
Well, things are definitely beginning to improve.
Yes, and to give him his due, linking compliance requirements to people's bonuses, while not a regulatory requirement,
Is a surefire way of changing the compliance culture of a firm. I like these guys. Let's continue.
Okay, so regarding the revised CMP, I would just like to get some comfort that it's going to cover the areas that we had concerns with last time we visited.
No problem.
Right, so one of the concerns that we had last time was the suitability of source of funds and source of wealth information for clients. So how is your CMP going to test that?
Darren, could you take this?
Yeah, sure. Our CMP will require dip sampling of all of our client files to ensure that we've adequately understood and documented source of funds and source of wealth. Following a recent remediation of our entire client base, I'm now confident that we have full source of funds and source of wealth information for all of our remaining clients, and we'll keep this standard up for our new clients.
Okay, well that's good to hear, Darren. But you did mention remaining clients. Well, how many were actually exited?
Andy, as Finance Director, would you like to cover this?
Yeah, sure. Well, we exited a number of clients, mainly because they were uneconomic to us or outside of our risk appetite.
Yes, well, they're certainly uneconomic now.
Andy, you mentioned a number of clients. I wonder if you could be more specific.
30%.
30%? That is quite significant. How does that make the business viable?
Well, I can tell you, as finance director, I've had a few sleepless nights.
Wow, Paul, 30%. They are exiting 30% of their clients. I am not surprised he had sleepless nights.
yeah, that was an interesting development. I'm glad they picked that up. Now, from the Commission's perspective, they're going to be wondering which clients went, where they went.
And if they had any suspicions before they went. Let's continue, shall we?
Of course, this means that we need to consolidate some teams and work smarter, but no doubt it will be tough, but we'll do what we have to do to survive.
Yeah, and I can assure you that we won't be taking on any new business if it looks iffy.
Well, that is good to know, Andy. You mentioned earlier that some of the exited business was outside of your new risk appetite. Darren, can you explain whether or not any suspicious activity reports were made?
Yeah, sure. Well, it's before my time here as MLRO, but if you look at the SAR register, you can see that SARs were raised and consent to exit was always sought from the FIS. That appears to be one thing the previous MLRO actually did right.
Yes, I was comfortable with that process too. And with our improved processes for onboarding and review of the remaining clients, I feel that we're in a good place to grow within the next 2 to 3 years. And also, all of that information needs to be in place for the upcoming Register of Beneficial Ownership.
On that note, Nick, can I ask you, for example, what beneficial ownership information do you hold on that African PEP client that we looked at last time?
Who? Do you mean Mufasa?
Yes, Mufasa.
He's no longer one of our clients. He's outside of our risk appetite.
Okay.
Nick, regarding the clients that you have exited, are you able to provide us with some information such as which service providers picked them up, where they went, did they leave the jurisdiction, things like that?
I think they went to some providers in the South Pacific somewhere. I'm sure we can get a list here.
The South Pacific. Okay. Well, given that you exited them, I've got to assume that there must be some sort of high-risk characteristics to do with those clients. Can you confirm that their CDD was brought up to a level commensurate with their risk rating before they left?
What? Hey, Andy, Wade means, did you hold the right level of due diligence based on the risk of the clients before they left the jurisdiction?
Why would that be our problem?
Andy, the last thing the Commission wants is for Guernsey structures to be moving to other jurisdictions when there are gaps in the due diligence. This could be detrimental to Guernsey's reputation as a well-regulated jurisdiction. So again, can you confirm to me whether you had appropriate due diligence and that you have access to those records. You do know that that is a handbook requirement.
I'll take it from here. We'll have to get back to you on that.
Well, that was an interesting end to the meeting, don't you think, Paul? Although I don't think they've covered themselves in glory there.
No, the last thing the Commission wants to see is a Guernsey structure moving overseas when there are clear deficiencies in the CDD held. I think Nick and Andy might have some quick explaining to do there.
Yeah, I agree. But there has been some positive changes from the Commission's perspective. The new NED seems to have a good influence on the board, and the compliance officer seems to know what needs to be done.
No, definitely. I can't wait until the next episode.
All characters appearing in this work are fictitious. No licensees were harmed in the making of this film.